What's up everyone, Mark here and welcome to the Prepared Pantry. Today we are finally taking on Berched chicken and rounding out our Recreating Ma Glockner's Restaurant series with its third and final installment. So I have given this an awful lot of thought. A bit of experimenting went into this before we went to execute our final recipe today. And I came to the conclusion that I was probably overthinking an awful lot. So we're going to really kind of strip it down to the essence of what it is. The Glockner's recipe and the information that's out there as far as the recipe is concerned seems to suggest that it is actually boiled, that they seasoned the half chickens, laid them into pans, covered them with water, put them on a top of a commercial range, and just had them simmering away for hours, and then flat iron grilling them to order when they were needed. So we're going to do this two ways. Where both are going to be done on the grill in the end, but we're going to start with 1/2 chicken in a sous vide bath at 150, which is more than enough over about a 3 or 4 hour period to make sure that it's pasteurized and it's sufficiently cooked. And then we're going to get some crispiness on that on the flat cast iron on the grill outside. Similarly, with the boil method, we are going to boil our half chicken, or not quite boil it, maybe bring it to a simmer in a pan just covered with water in a 205-degree oven. So that is a little bit below boiling. It should be more than hot enough to cook, and it's going to go for a good 3 or 4 hours too. These were said to boil away on the stove for hours. So again, it's not really going to boil. We don't want it to boil. We just want to make sure it stays covered with water. And again, 205 is well above the safe cooking temperature for the chicken in the first place. So we shouldn't really be worried about that. It's a low oven temperature, but it's a sufficient temperature for the amount of time that we're going to be cooking the chicken. Before we get into the recipe, I want to take a minute to thank you all again so much for your continued support of the channel and for watching the videos and giving them a thumbs up. Speaking of which, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Click the red button down below or the watermark over in the corner, and when you do, make sure you hit the bell icon so you'll get a notification every time I post a new video. All right, let's get started. Okay, so there are plenty of videos all over the internet that show you how to butcher a chicken, so I'm not going to waste time showing you how to do that. But basically, you just want to remove the wingtips and cut out the spine along the back, kind of cutting in at a 45-degree angle on both sides. You're going to cut through bones. That's fine. You're going to have to crunch your way through the wishbone at the end. That's pretty much it. And once it's flipped open, you can kind of cut through the breastplate, and you will have 2 halves of chicken. This one I accidentally separated the leg from the breast meat there a little bit, but it's fine. So that one's a little smaller, this one's a little larger. It does not matter too much. So we're going to get these seasoned up and started on their separate paths. So these are both going to get salt on both sides. A lot of people find the breaking down of a chicken a little bit gross too, so I didn't necessarily want to include that here. So a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper. And the key ingredient here is poultry seasoning. This is really what's going to contribute most of the seasoning and herb flavor outside of some of the fresh herbs we'll get there. This is completely period. Most poultry seasonings are composed of the same things, you know, thyme, marjoram, rosemary, sage. It's really always almost the same mix. I went with Bell's seasoning. My family has used it for years. It's been around forever. More than 100 years, so it's it's certainly period and would be right in its place on Ma Glockner's shelf at the time that she developed this recipe. So I didn't want to overthink it, and this is part of the not overthinking it. There might not be much that goes into this other than a little bit of poultry seasoning and the method of preparation. Method of preparation is huge. Now I'm gonna go a little overboard on the poultry seasoning, because it doesn't hurt too much to do that. It's not super potent stuff. Just kind of rub that around. And also you have to remember the skin side, the seasoning that goes on the skin side will flavor the skin for those who like that sort of thing. But it's not necessarily doing a whole lot for the flavor of the meat underneath. It's really the seasonings that go on this side that should do that. Okay, now just to ensure that we cook things all the way through, I think I'm going to go with the larger one in the boiling. We're going to just place this in a roasting pan that's large enough to fit it, and we want to do that skin side up. I'm going to throw in a sprig of rosemary, a sprig of thyme, and a bay leaf. And this is going to get covered with water, just enough to cover the chicken. And it's going to go into the 205-degree oven for about 3 or 4 hours. At that point, the sous vide chicken should also be done, and we'll pull them both out, pat them dry, and get them onto the grill to do the final crisping. Okay, our sous vide bath is going, and it's on the way up to 150 degrees. While that's going on, we're going to get our other half chicken into the vacuum bag for sous vide. Just like the previous episode where we covered sous vide cooking, you don't necessarily have to use a vacuum bag and have a vacuum sealer to do this. You can use a heavy-duty zip-top bag. When you carefully lower it into the water pushes in and the water pressure displaces the air that's in there. And it's almost as good as doing a vacuum. So we're going to get this slid on in here, and I think we're going to do breast side toward the bottom of the bag. I'm intentionally trying to keep one hand clean, and I folded over the bag on purpose so that I could kind of keep a little bit of the area of the top of the bag clean for the vacuum sealing. Now we're going to put the rosemary and the thyme and the bay leaf in there on the skin side. And that's because with sous vide cooking, we'd be holding and pressing those fresh herbs against the meat. And if we did that on the non-skin side, we could end up with areas where just over the long cooking period, it gets kind of bitter. And we don't want that. So we want it to kind of impart some of its flavor on the overall package what's going on in here. They're nice aromatics, but we don't necessarily want it to ruin the meat with a overpowering bitter flavor. So from here, we can close up our bag and try and get this as flat as possible, just so that it takes a little less time to cook. Looks like we got a pretty good seal there. And one thing you do want to be careful of here is bones poking through. You don't want any bones poking through your bag. That's not going to be helpful. So I think we're good. Take the foil off here. This just kind of helps hold in the heat. I'm going to lower in our chicken, and I'm going to put it skin side down because it is going to be at a little bit of an angle. And I'm just going to kind of use the magnet to clip this to the side. You can use a magnet or a clip or whatever works for you. I just want to make sure that it stays submerged. I'm going to cover this back up with foil. And once it reaches 150 degrees, we're going to start the clock counting on that 3 or 4 hours. And it really is flexible here, right? Because remember, with sous vide, we're cooking it to the temperature that we set it at, and it's not going to go any higher. And 150 is lower than the 165, which is recommended for poultry. But again, Pasteurization of meat is a function of time and temperature. And since we are holding it at 150 for a very long time, we do not have to worry about bringing it up to 165. Similarly, again, I may have already mentioned this, but with the one that's boiling away in the oven, it's not really boiling away, it's slowly simmering away, if that. It's only 205 degrees in there, so the water is only going to get to 205 degrees, and the chicken is only going to get to 205 degrees. But 205 degrees is already higher than the 165, so there's nothing really to worry about there either. So we're going to let these both continue to go. Again, about 3 or 4 hours. We want to just keep an eye on this, make sure that the bag doesn't need to be adjusted and that the water level stays where it's at. It shouldn't evaporate too much. With the oven, though, I do want to make sure that it's not evaporating, so we're going to make sure that we top that off and keep the chicken covered with water for the entire time. Other than that, it's just babysitting and waiting for things to be done. When we get close to the end, let's say about an hour out from the chicken being done, so maybe 3 hours in, we will start to get our baked potato ready, and that's going to take about 40 minutes to an hour. We're going to bake those at 400 degrees, but we're going to do that in the toaster oven so that we're not affecting the chicken that's going in the main oven. All right, we will be back to address our sweet potato in a while. All right, so it's been about 3 hours, and I've got the toaster oven preheated to 400 degrees. We're going to get started on prepping our sweet potatoes so that they can cook in the last 40 minutes to an hour before the chicken is ready. Chicken's still cooking away in the sous vide bath and over in the oven. Quick thing I do want to mention, though, the water that I poured in to cover the chicken before it went into the oven was already boiling or very near boiling. I boiled a pot of water first to use that to cover. For the same reason that I wanted to start the timing when the sous vide bath was at 150 degrees. I did put the chicken in a little bit before it reached 150, but it was very quickly approaching, so I wasn't too worried about it. So nearly boiling water went in, so when we set the oven to 205 degrees, it's already kind of in the simmering range. And oven temperatures vary. I mean, it's going to be pretty common for, you know, a 5-10 degree difference. You could end up with boiling water or not even simmering water at 205 on your oven setting. So play around with it a little bit if you need to. You kind of want to see the water just barely starting to bubble. You can check it with an instant read thermometer to see if it's at temperature. Of course, it's not going to get any hotter than 205 degrees, but you do want to make sure that you're keeping it covered in water and at a increasing and then consistent temperature for the duration. So that's just important. All right, so all we're really going to do to prep our sweet potatoes is cut off the sides a little bit here. And this is going to really just let them absorb a little bit of extra butter as they kind of cook in their own liquid. Not super important, and you know, you can leave them on. That's not a huge deal. Then we're going to slice down about halfway down, but not all the way through. And for mine, because I'm just making two, I'm putting them in individual little loaf tins. Nothing wrong with using, you know, whatever size vessel you have for the number of potatoes you have, you think will work best. So, you know, this just happens to work best for me. Okay. Now, I'm going to do a little drizzle of olive oil on top. And just brush that around over the surface. And this will just help crisp up the skin. Some people like to eat the skin, most people don't, but it helps fry up the skin in a way that makes it easier to peel it away from the inside flesh of the potato or sweet potato when we're done. And then we're going to just top each of these with a few pats of butter, maybe a tablespoon or two per sweet potato total. And you know, most of this is just going to roll off and kind of pool in the bottom, but again, that's why we wanted to use this size dish for it, so it's going to really just baste in the butter for most of the time that it cooks. So these are going to go into a 400-degree oven, or toaster oven in my case, for about 40 minutes to an hour. I'm going to keep checking on them, just make sure that they're not going too far or burning. They should be ready just about the time that we're pulling the chicken. So we'll be back when we're ready to go out to the grill. Okay, on the left we have boiled, on the right we have sous vide. These are some big boy chicken halves. Obviously it kind of plumps up and tightens up a bit as it cooks. I'm hoping that it has become tender enough that we can squash this when we get to the grill, and that it's not like trying to press a rubber ball into the grill. But again, these were cooked at fairly low temperatures. Well, at least the sous vide was anyway. Yeah, we'll see. So I apologize in advance. It's a bit of a breezy night tonight in Warwick, so I'm not sure how the sound is going to come out when we go outside, but I'm going to bring these out to the grill. I'm shooting for about 350, 375 as a temperature for my cast iron griddle flat top. And you would kind of want to shoot this for the same with your foil wrapped bricks, just having them set on top. You want to be careful about that. Don't use bricks that have any moisture in them. Even if you think they're dry, if they've been outside, they might not be. There might be moisture trapped way in the middle. And that can make them literally explode when you heat them up, especially rapidly. So make sure you're using dry bricks, or like I'm doing, I'm just using a second cast iron flat top griddle to press it from the top. So we're going to put these down for about 7 minutes and not touch them, skin side down, and squish them and hope for the best. We'll see you outside. All right, here we are, and it is the moment of truth. So we're going to put on the grill gloves, and we're going to move the top cast iron back a bit. Take the grill gloves back off. And let's see, how do we want to do this? I'm just going to grab it with the foil. So, skin side down. Boiled on the left. Sous vide on the right. And the 7-minute counter is starting. And I'm going to squash this as best I can. All right, folks, 7 minutes it is. All right, I think we're ready. How stuck is it? Oh, not really. Sous vide. And the more traditional boiled. Oh, that one fell apart. Let's get these inside and take a look at them. All right, boiled sous vide. I mean, to me, these look an awful lot like Glockner's chicken. They could maybe be a little more flat, as strange as that sounds, and I think maybe the boiled edges out the sous vide just a little bit somehow. I really thought the sous vide was going to win. You know, in the end, I think really what Berched chicken is just chicken that's cooked in a wet environment, whether that is sous vide or that is you know, literally boiled, just cooked in a wet environment that conducts heat more readily, and then finished squished on a flat top grill. I think that is the definition of Berched chicken. So let's get these plated up and get our cinnamon rolls and baked sweet potatoes, and we will have ourselves a real Glockner's chicken dinner. All right, so we have boiled and sous vide. And again, I think they're probably going to be pretty similar. Let's give these a couple turns of pepper, a little bit of salt to finish them off. Same with the salad. Of course, got to take a bite of the salad first. I mean, looks alone, this just seems like the closest thing anyone must have ever gotten to Mal Glockner's chicken dinner outside of Glockner's restaurant or River Falls. I'm gonna go for the little bit of the potato. Maybe we could have used a little salt and pepper. And I put it in the oven. But good nonetheless. Of course, the cinnamon roll. And we tasted these. We made them last time. And there was the chicken. A little bit of dark meat. A little bit of breast meat. I'll tell you what, that is pretty close as far as I'm concerned. Let's just see how we do on the sous vide side too. I think we did it. I mean, they're both equally seasoned. They're both cooked in a wet environment. They're both very similar. Maybe the boiled is a little bit more juicy for some reason. But both very good. And, you know, with the cinnamon roll and the sweet potato, you can't go wrong. Guys, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already. Just click the watermark in the corner or the red button below the video. And when you do, make sure you hit the bell icon so you get a notification every time I have a new video out. And we will see you in the next one. It is time for Joe and I to have dinner.